Okay, Year 11, just to remind you, the question we're looking at is how useful are sources B and C for an inquiry into views on the Treaty of Versailles in 1919? And you should have already evaluated the source, Clemenceau the vampire, and you should have written a paragraph where you've done stage 1, you've found out what useful information has it given us about attitudes to Versailles, and you've also done stage 2, you've used some of your information to check the accuracy of some of the views that you've found. What we're going to look at today is we're going to look at a model answer that covers stage 1, stage 2, and introduces stage 3, where you have to look at the nature, origin, and purpose of the source. Okay, Year 11, I'm going to talk you through a model answer to this question. And you can see that I've created a little key, and the key follows the stages. So remember, stage 1, you had to find out what useful information there is in the source. And obviously where we've done this in the model answer, it's coloured purple. Stage 2, you had to test the information in the source with your own knowledge. In the model answer, this is colour-coded green. And then stage 3, which we didn't do in our write-up, which we're going to talk about now, is just where the nature, origin, and purpose is discussed. So if you look at the model answer, it starts with a link to the question. The content of source B is useful for an inquiry into views on the Treaty of Versailles in 1919. We then discuss details of the source. So the source, through its imagery, reminds us that the Germans hated the treaty and were deeply opposed to many of its terms. In the source, Clemenceau is depicted as a vampire feeding off a defenceless Germany. I now introduce some of my own knowledge to gauge how accurate that claim is. So I say, from my own knowledge, this represents the fact that the Allies took away 10% of Germany's land, 12.5% of its population, and almost half of its iron and steel industry. So I've used my own knowledge to verify a claim in the source. The source also shows a discarded shield and sword, and this reminds us that the treaty also took away Germany's defences. And again, I have my own knowledge here. Indeed, from my own knowledge, Germany's army was restricted to 100,000 men, and they were not allowed modern weapons. So you can see how I've picked out key details from the source that tell me views on Versailles, and I've used my own knowledge to check the accuracy of these claims. The final section is where I start talking about the nature, origin, and purpose of the source. That's who produced it and why they produced it, and how that might affect its usefulness. So if you look at the red section, I argue that, however, there are some issues with the nature, the origin, and purpose of the source. The source is from a German newspaper published in July 1919, immediately after the terms of the treaty were announced to Germany. So as such, it is useful in representing the immediate reaction of the German people, which was one of anger and resentment. However, the newspaper is from a German perspective, so the reaction might be exaggerated, and its usefulness is also limited in the sense that it is only the immediate reaction rather than a long-term view. So what I've done there is I've taken some information from the attribution, some clues the examiner's given us, the fact that we're told it's a German newspaper, we're told it's from July 1919, and I've tried to think of some issues that might create, and I've tried to argue that to the examiner, and that's in the red section. So this is a model answer now. I'd like you to have a look at this answer, understand it, and perhaps compare it to the answer that you've done. It would also be useful to add the final section to your answer. That's the section in red, the section that deals with nature, origin, and purpose. And then you'll have a complete evaluation of source B in your books. So that's this session's challenge, to understand what a good answer looks like and get that final section of nature, origin, and purpose added to your answer. Okay, thank you.